Gents, I just want to pause the episode for a moment to let you know about the Strong Men of Value Academy. You will have heard me refer to it a number of times, and I want to bring more attention to it. So this isn't just a program, it's a life-changing environment and community of men who are focused on personal and professional growth. We're looking at areas of relationships, wealth, and health, things to help you thrive and maximize your life. Imagine having bi-monthly one-on-one coaching sessions with myself, weekly group coaching calls, and an incredible brotherhood of high achievers by your side. Now we're diving into resilience, leadership, and holistic growth to not just succeed in your career, but to thrive in your health and your relationships. Your journey to greatness, it starts here. So join the movement and you can apply for the Strong Men of Value Academy. You can head to themanthatcanproject.com to find out more. Welcome to episode 491. Hope those of you who got to have a long weekend over the weekend had an absolute ripper. For those of you who didn't, I hope you just had an incredible weekend. I was away at a fishing trip. It was literally phenomenal. 7 of us blokes went away, ate a lot of fish, caught a lot of fish, got some sun, and just hung out. It was really quite enjoyable. So today's guest is an incredible man. He's a husband. He's a great mate to so many. He's a partner, and he's an adaptive athlete who has competed at the CrossFit Games. Today's guest, Rogan, is someone that I reached out to because I wanted to understand how he pivoted so quickly. I've read articles about him. I've listened to podcasts on him, and he is one that truly leads by example in overcoming life's challenges. He's also pivoted sports from playing Queensland Cup to competing at the CrossFit Games. We spoke about balancing fatherhood, partnerships and athletics pursuits, but also one that I personally haven't had a conversation around before, which is breaking the stigma around adaptive athletes. And it was a really insightful conversation that I feel so many of us will be able to take bits and pieces away and take a whole new perspective on that. So don't miss this inspiring conversation. It truly is that. It's phenomenal. And before we dive into this episode, if you get value from these podcasts, please take a quick moment to leave a rating and review and share this with just one mate, because it's the fastest way to help the show grow. And as you'll notice, the guests are getting bigger and bigger, and the more reviews and ratings that we have, the bigger the guests that I can get on for you guys. So help me out. That would be awesome, and I really appreciate that. One other thing that myself and Brad have created, we've created a free mindset mastery course. This is for those of you who want to build your mindset, you want to crush the negative self-talk, set goals like a boss, build confidence, and overcome failure and learn things around nutrition and mindfulness. It goes for 7 modules. Right? All you need to do is head over to our website. You can click on the link. All we ask for is your email address. The reason why is we give you prompts along the way in this 7-module course to remind you. You also get sent a certificate of completion, which is pretty cool. Now, why is it free? I know some of you are probably having that question. The reason why it is free is 2 things. We want to give you the bare essentials to start improving your life without having to worry about finances. The second reason is we want you to get a feel for how our Breakthrough Experience program works, the way the videos run, the way myself and Bradley coach, the quizzes, the worksheets, all that sort of stuff. So if you feel like you gain value from that course, then maybe one day in the future you're going to say, hey, I want a bit more. Let's look at the Breakthrough Experience. That's complete transparency. Okay, that's enough from me. Leave that rating and review. Get ready to buckle into an incredible episode. Here we go. The Man That Can Project podcast, a podcast empowering career-driven men to live more fulfilling lives. We are here to challenge your beliefs, redefine success, and talk about the important stuff in a relatable way. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. My name's Lachlan Stuart. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Man That Can Project podcast, episode 490. We're getting close to that 500 mark, which is pretty exciting. And we're in another new studio today. We've moved house, and where we're currently staying, there's like 20 people there. So it's not really a podcasting space at the moment, but we've made do it function well. So thank you, function well. And today's guest, I'm so stoked to have you, man. I was following you. Well, I first heard about you through a mutual friend, Ollie Olds, and I was on his podcast. He's been on the Man That Can podcast. And I was watching your story or listening to your story, sorry, and then I watched it on LSKD's website. You did the 1% better, which was unreal. And a few things stood out to me, and I was like, I've got to just have a conversation with you around how you adapted so quickly and what your journey has been like to continue to perform at such a high level for such a long time, even through adversity. And now I finally get to pick your brain. So Rogan, thanks so much for joining me.
No, thanks for having me.
Mate, rather than me sort of butchering an intro, even though as I said, I've gone through all your Instagram, I've read articles, I've listened to podcasts about you, I've got a bucket load of notes. Give the audience a bit of a rundown on who you are and where you are at in your life currently.
Name's Rogan Dean. I was born in New Zealand, grew up in Mackay, sort of did all my schooling, played rugby league from a very young age. I think I started when I was about 6-7 years old. Played all my juniors for the Serena Crocs up in Serena, and then I moved to Townsville straight out of school. Spent a couple of years at the Cowboys in their under-20s program. After that, I sort of finished up when I was 20, sort of didn't get a first grade contract, so I moved down to Brisbane to continue sort of playing in the Queensland Cup. So I think I spent a season at Wynnum and then a few years at North and then eventually out to Ipswich. Yep. And then, in 2020, the COVID season, the season got cut short, and in that time I was aiming to get into doing a few triathlons and an Ironman, so I was doing a lot of running, cycling, and then one afternoon I was just going for a ride with one of my mates on our motorbikes and got hit by a car about 5 minutes from home, which resulted in me having to have my left foot amputated. From there I sort of went through all the recovery process, and then eventually my partner got me into CrossFit, sort of
roped into the community.
Needing something to fill that void of not being able to play footy anymore. I needed something to still be able to push myself, still like sort of give you motivation to train, stuff to train towards, rather than just training for the sake of it. And then I fell in love with it immediately. Last year I was lucky enough to qualify for the CrossFit Games, and in the lower extremity division, and I went over to America and ended up finishing second in the world there.
Mate, wow, that's pretty insane. For you telling that story now, like how does it feel to see, I know you just gave us the quick rundown, but how does that make you feel knowing what you've achieved even post-accident?
Not 100% satisfied yet. I think being so close to winning it, it's definitely sort of made me hungrier to go back again this year and try and go that one better. But definitely the whole journey itself has been unreal, and I've been lucky enough to still have those opportunities and all the support around me, which definitely helped.
Yeah, I was going to say, I assume that the goal is to win it this year, and you've been giving it your all to that. You've recently become a dad as well, so how have you, and we'll backtrack to certain things, but how have you managed with the still hunger and drive and desire to be number one, to be that 1% better while being a dad and a husband? How do you sort of balance that?
It's challenging at times. The training schedule is definitely a lot harder now because, like my partner, she still likes to train as much as she can as well. So we are having to have rosters about who's watching the baby while the other trains. Yeah. But we still manage to make it work. And if anything, it's sort of it definitely, having that baby now and my fiance, we've got our own little family. It's just it even adds to the hunger because I want to make them proud now as well.
Yeah, nice. And do you feel as well like part of your journey as well? Because as I mentioned, one of the reasons why I really wanted to have a conversation with you was how you adapted. Like I was reading an article about you on NRL.com, and it was like, while you were still in hospital, you're like, I'm going to run the New York Marathon or Boston Marathon. I can't remember which marathon. You're in bed. I don't know whether you'd had the surgery yet or were about to have the surgery, but you're like, all right, let's start training for the marathon. How did you shift so quickly and not, I guess, sit in that poor me sort of mindset, which I'm sure would definitely happen, but how did you move through that?
A lot of it came down to the support I had around me at the time as well, definitely helped. Because there was definitely some hard days in the beginning and sort of a few dark moments, and obviously being so active and sort of my whole life revolved around sort of health and fitness, and then having that accident and having, like to me, like your immediate thoughts are like you've just had all that taken away from you, and you suppose you have like a little bit of an identity crisis. Like, what am I going to do now when this was all I ever did? I was lucky enough to have a beautiful support base around me. Like, I had a beautiful family, friends, and a lot of things, like little things they told me, like that just stuck with me. Like one of my best mates, the one who was with me the day of the accident, he said to me one day, he said like there's no, like you're still that same person. Like you've still, like yes, you had an accident and you've like had your foot amputated, but you're still the same person. You've still got that same mindset, that same drive. Like you're sort of like your future still like is like open to whatever you want to do with that mindset and drive. Like you're still able to do whatever it is you want to do. So that was definitely like, bits like that definitely sort of stuck with me and helped me sort of develop that mindset to overcome it and not sort of dwell on it and pull me.
It just proves how important mindset is though as well, and environment a lot of people take for granted or maybe aren't even aware of how influential the people you spend time with can be. So you having that support network, even your best mate saying that I can't imagine many people saying that, because most people really wouldn't necessarily know what to say because we haven't been through what you've been through, for example, and it's hard to tell people how they should or shouldn't feel, right? But for your mate to deliver that is quite an uplifting thing. And you had a thing in the article as well. It's like your whole goal throughout your athletic career has always been to be the best you physically can be, and that goal never changed even after the accident. So to have that mindset right through talks to me or made me feel inspired, because I was thinking, what would my life be? Because I'm very similar to you, my whole life's sport and health and fitness, and if I were to have my leg taken away, I always thought, man, life wouldn't be worth living. And then I heard your story and I was like, I didn't even think about, or the initial thoughts that I originally had didn't exist. You've opened for me personally, and I'm sure for thousands of people, this whole new way to appreciate what you can do with your life if the right mindset is attached to adversity. So I appreciate you doing that, mate. It's been very inspiring. So when we look at the identity, obviously you had that based around wanting to be an athlete and nothing's changed. So where do you see yourself going over the next couple of years as an athlete?
As an athlete, I think I've still got maybe 3 or 4 more years at like trying to be at the most competitive level I can be.
Yep.
Obviously having the young baby now, that's sort of definitely taken up a big chunk of my life, and I want to be present and be the best father I can be. So chasing sort of athletic goals can't always sort of take priority.
Yep.
But definitely over the next couple of years, I think I'll definitely try and make the most of the next few years to try and achieve as much as I physically can.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting when you think about that. There's always going to be, everything has a life cycle essentially. As athletes, most footy players are retiring, say anywhere from 30 to 35, and then there's a life after that. So for me, it's always been, I'm running a marathon tomorrow, and people are like, why are you doing that? It's not even an actual marathon, you're just running. I'm like, well, I don't know when I won't be able to do these things, so while I can, I'm going to maximize it. And, then you talk about family and other things that sort of make you have to sort of shift your priorities, which is an interesting thing to sort of deal with. Bringing that back to the adaptation. COVID was a tough time for people. This happened to you in COVID. People wouldn't have been able to visit you as much because of what hospitals were like and stuff?
So the first, I think it was the first 3 or 4 days of being in hospital, that like I had heaps of visitors, all my friends, family, everyone coming in, and that was a good thing, because that was like, I had a rule sort of right from the start that anyone who wants to come and see me, you can't be sad. You have to be happy in there. I don't want people coming in, dwelling on it, feeling sorry for me. If you're coming to visit me, that's good, but be happy. And that definitely helped, having all of the people around in the early days. And then I think it was on the 4th day we went into, the hospital went into lockdown because there was more COVID sort of cases. And so then for the next couple of days I was stuck up there by myself, and that's when you really started dwelling on it and sort of not like I was struggling to sleep at night, and just the days were just real long up there by yourself. And then that's when I decided the best thing for me and my recovery was I needed to get out of hospital. I needed to be around people because for me, like, there's nothing you can do for the physical healing of it. You just got to wait and bide your time. But for the mental side of it, the best thing for me to do at the time was just to try and sort of get back to things that made me happy, and that was training and being around my friends and family. So I think from there, I asked the doctor the next day. I said, like, what have I got to do to get out of here? I want to get out of hospital. And at the time, I still had I had all these machines hooked up to me. I had there's like IVs for pain relief. I had like a vacuum seal on the bottom of my wound. I had catheter in, like all these, like another drip for antibiotics, all these things. He's like, well, for starters, you can't go anywhere with all this on you. And I said, well, can we get it all off? And he's like, oh, we'll have to do that over the course of a couple of days. We'll just have to take one out at a time. And so I think that took 2 days to finally get it all out. And I said, like, I think the last thing to come out was the catheter. And he said, if you don't pee within a couple of hours, you can't go anywhere. So I started sculling water. within half an hour, I was peeing, and I said, I'm good to go. Like, I'm getting out of here.
Mate, you're a bloody persistent, determined bugger, aren't you? What was it like, though? I guess all of those things were there for a reason. The pain. What was the pain like? And obviously fast-tracking that to get back home. How'd you sort of tolerate that?
But I was in, like, the pain of it was... it's sort of the weird type of pain. It's like a real, it's nerve pain and a lot of phantom pain in like the limb that's no longer there.
Yep.
And I wasn't getting any relief from it, even with all the pain relief hooked up to me. So I was like, whether I'm in here with all these like drips and stuff on me or whether I'm out of there with none of it, it's still the same. So and that took quite a few months to sort of just ease on its own. There was no real pain relief, and the medication that was like taking the edge off it. It was more of just let it run its course, and eventually it started to ease.
Jesus Christ. That's wild. Yeah, what's that phantom? Because I was reading about the phantom pain. Can you describe what that feels like?
It's definitely, it's weird until you like go through it and fully understand it. But in the early days, like it felt, the way the doctors and that described it to me is your brain, like your nervous system's like one big sort of electrical circuit where it's your brain sending circuits down to every limb of your body, and it's all like computing all the information back. So that's how you know where your hand is without looking at it and stuff like that.
Yep.
And then when I had the accident, because the accident severed my left foot, so technically, to explain it, they reckon like that sort of severed the electrical connections back to the brain. So the brain's sending sort of information to it, and then because the nerves have all been cut and severed, it's not getting anything back, so it's telling the brain it's in pain. And then the brain will remember the very last time it got anything back from it, and the very last time it got anything back, it was being crushed and sort of severed. So that was what continuously kept sending back to my brain. And so for the next few months, my foot just, like, I could still feel it all as if it was still there, and to me I could still wiggle the toes and all that, but it's no longer there. And it was just like a constant burning and like sort of pressure there. So it just feels like it's constantly burning and sort of being crushed. And that was only like, that would stick around for the first few months.
And eventually you just got used to it. Like, do you still feel it now? Or?
I can still feel the foot and everything, like it's still there. Like, if I don't look at it, to me, I'm moving my foot now, I'm wiggling my toes, but there's nothing there.
That's incredible.
I can still feel it all. The pain's definitely gone now. Like, it's like every now and then you get a few like sort of phantom pains where it feels like someone might it feels like someone stabs you in the foot. And you'll get like a bit of a jump, and then it's gone. Like, it lasts a second and it's gone. Like, and you might get one of those every couple of weeks or something. But like there's pretty much no pain there now.
And what is that? I guess the experience that you've had, and even like how incredible the human body is. What has that taught you about the potential limitations that we put on ourselves as human beings?
Well, a lot of people say like the body's capable of a lot more than the mind lets you believe.
Yep.
Like, your mind's there to pretty much protect the body. So whenever you're putting your body in through pain and through sort of challenges, the brain's there to try and tell you to stop and protect it. But the body's capable of a lot more than most people believe. Yep.
And what were some of those things for you personally that you now believe about yourself that maybe you before the accident didn't?
I don't know. I've kind of always had that attitude even before the accident, where I've always known, I've always enjoyed challenging myself and pushing my limits, and I've always had a good understanding that the body is capable of a lot more. I ran a marathon 1 year off next to no training.
You're a savage, bro.
I was about 102 kilos. I was too heavy, way too heavy to be a marathon runner. But my whole goal going into that was just don't stop running for the entire time. And I knew I hadn't done enough training and stuff, but I knew that in my mind I'm not going to let myself stop running because I know I'm capable of doing it. It's just going to be a struggle, but you're going to do it.
Give me some advice because I'm doing that tomorrow. What in, I guess, mindset-wise, at what point did you start hurting, and then for how long after it were you in pain for, if you were in pain?
Oh, I was in a bad way after it. The first 20 Ks, I got through it. I was breezing through it, and I was thinking to myself, this is actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be. And it wasn't until about 25 Ks I started getting just little cramps in my calves, but I went into it well underprepared too, so I didn't know anything about nutrition throughout it and sort of all that stuff. I had some running gels and stuff with me on a little running belt, but to me going into it, I thought, I'll wait until I'm starting to struggle, then I'll have them, which is the wrong thing to do. You're supposed to have them right from the start and you stay on top of it before you start to struggle. But so I started to get some little cramps in my calves at around 25 Ks. By 30 Ks, they'd kind of moved into my quads and into my glutes. So every time I'd go up a hill, my glutes would start cramping. And every time I go down a hill, my quads are cramping. And and that was a struggle till about probably 36, 37 Ks. And then it starts to sink in that you're nearly there. So
you get that final push.
You get that push where you're there, you're not stopping.
Yeah, for those who are listening to this, not watching on YouTube, you're a decent sized bloke. You got some muscle on. So to be able to run a marathon at 102 kilos is phenomenal. Diving back to the time, obviously in isolation in hospital, but even I guess the first couple of months out before you got back being active, what was probably the most challenging emotional thing you had to go through?
Probably not knowing that I'm not going to be able to play footy at a competitive level. That was definitely a challenging sort of point because sort of up until then footy had been all of my athletic career had always been towards rugby league, and I'd only just come back I took 2 years off, which because I sort of had fallen out of love with the sport, and I'd came back and I'd played for Ipswich Jets in 2019, and that was one of the best seasons I'd played throughout all my career, and I'd found that love for the sport again, and I was motivated again, enjoying my footy in a really good space, and then this happened in 2020. So it was challenging because of the timing of the whole thing. I just sort of found my love for it again, and then to have it taken away 12 months later was definitely a hard part. And then throughout all the early days of it, there was always hard parts just around, like I said before, a bit of an identity crisis. I've always been known as Rogan, the footy player, and my whole life's always been revolved around health and fitness, and I've always prided myself on always being the fastest, strongest, fittest. I've always loved pushing myself. So in the early days, that was the hardest part, was coming to trying to accept the terms that I now have this, at the time I thought I'm now going to have this limitation, everything's going to be a lot harder, and learning to accept that was probably the hardest parts. But it wasn't until later on, once I started getting back into my training and realising that I'm still able to compete at a competitive level, and yes, it does come with some limitations, but nowhere near as many as I thought it was going to be.
Yep. What have been some of the major limitations that you've experienced?
Mobility is probably the biggest one. That's with a lot of Olympic lifting and stuff like that. It's a lot. Not having any ankle mobility definitely hinders you a little bit. But in saying that, through changing techniques and adapting a bit of a wider stance, there's things you can do to help get around it. It did take a little while to build a bit of strength back up in it, and a lot of that was just trial and error of different techniques. Like I'm still like not anywhere near where my previous PBs were, but I'm not far off them, which is a good thing.
I saw you doing a 125 kilo thruster. Dude, when I saw you doing that, I was like, I can't do that. No chance. That would bury me. My spine would be like, so just flipping strong.
I think for that workout, I think I ended up with a 130 kilo thruster, and it did. Like my back is still sore from it.
Oh, dude, that is insane. But it's cool that you obviously can adapt and move with all of that sort of stuff there as well. I wanted to sort of dive more about any of the fears or anything like that you've... do you have any fears that you're thinking about for the future with obviously the injury or limitations or anything like that, or pretty...
I wouldn't say fears. I definitely in the next couple of years I want to make sure that I have given everything I physically can. I'll always continue to train and sort of be into health and fitness for the rest of my life. That's just the person I am. But in terms of training and competing at an elite level, I'll only do that for a couple more years, and I don't want to. I suppose I would have a fear of getting through that next couple of years and then calling it quits and then thinking maybe I could have done more or should have done more. I want to make sure that when I do finally decide to step away from like competitive level, where I'm satisfied with what I've put into it.
Yep. I think from the type of person I'm hearing you are with the drive and ambition, you're going to just directly shift that into something else. Do you have any idea of what that might be for you? Have you thought about that?
Like I said, I'll continue to train forever, but I do want to set, there'll be other goals I set once I'm done sort of competing, where I want to, like I said, I still want to get into triathlons. I want to do an Ironman. That my times, like I'm never going to be competitive at it. I'm a terrible swimmer, but that just, I'll set goals like that where it challenges me and I still get that sense of accomplishment when I've done it. I don't have to be trying to be the best in the world at it, but for me, finishing, like if I was to finish an Ironman, that's I'll be happy with that accomplishment. I don't have to win it. I'm happy I got through it.
Yep. And have you had any doubters along the way, like since you especially with the CrossFit Games and everything like that? Are there people that have sort of, because I think it was in the LSKD video, you mentioned something about people's doubt around your ability to get back to where you were, be a main contributor to you working so hard?
Yeah, a lot of it's just like the general perception of like people with prosthetics and adaptive athletes, and that a lot of people will look at, like, say for instance, they'll see someone with one leg training and they'll go, oh, like it's really cool, he's still doing it, that's cool. But like that, a lot of us are still capable of being competitive at a very high level, even with a prosthetic leg. And I think that's definitely been one of my driving factors is, like, I still compete in like fully able comps and stuff like that, and I'm quite competitive, and I can still beat 90% of people, like sort of like that I go up against, and that's sick. That's a big driving factor in me, is to prove that it's not like it. Like I have a prosthetic now, but I'm still able to compete at a very high level, and I'm still a very athletic person. And there's a lot of other people out there with prosthetics and stuff that are at the same level where they're still very competitive athletes, and it's kind of a lot of that just trying to move away from you're doing a really good job training with one leg, to being like, holy shit, like there's people out there with one leg that are like absolutely killing people out there in competitions. They're still athletic.
Never actually thought about the stigma or even like the social perception around all of that sort of stuff. So that's interesting to think about. And obviously for someone who's played semi-professional, professional level sport prior, that would, if that was me, that would piss me off like wow, because as we said before, you 130 kilo thruster, that would absolutely bury me, and it would absolutely bury 99% of people. That would have been one of the heaviest thrusters going around, right?
Well, a lot of the, like your top sort of Oceania sort of games athletes and that was all the same weight a lot of them were putting up. Like, so to me it was like just good to see that I'm still putting up a decent competitive weight. Like there's other workouts where they've blown me away, but in some instances, like I'm still sort of up there with the top guys.
What was the games like? Like going over there, the whole experience and everything like that?
the whole experience was unreal. Just to be part of an event where you've got all of the fittest people in the world all competing was pretty special to be a part of. I'm definitely looking forward to going back again this year, coming in a lot more prepared this time. Hopefully the nerves are a lot more settled. I know what to expect. I've sort of picked up a lot of learnings along the way, but overall it was an awesome experience.
What is one of the main things that you're doing differently for this season as opposed to last?
I'll get over there a bit earlier this time.
Yep.
Last year I went over 3 days early, thinking that would be enough.
3 days.
Thinking it'd be enough to sort of get my sleep back into a bit of a routine, but it wasn't enough. Like the night before the games, I'm still waking up at 2 a.m. because my body clock's all out of whack, which didn't help. So this year I'll go over a lot earlier. So you can get over the jet lag. I'll get a few training sessions in, sort of start, get back in the rhythm before we have to compete. Nutrition's a big thing. I'll probably go in a little bit lighter this year.
Yep. What are you weighing at the moment?
I'm about 95, 96 kilos now. I probably want to get to about 94 before I head over there. Last year I was sort of anywhere between, I think I was about 98 kilos last year. I went in a bit too heavy.
Yep.
So, this year definitely, that's probably the two biggest things, get my nutrition sorted. Obviously, just keep training, training at high intensity. But, get over there and get all my sleep and food and recovery sorted and come in a bit lighter and a bit sort of more prepared.
No, it's exciting, mate. I look forward to following along and, mate, seeing you on top of the podium will be unreal. I've got one last question for you. And normally I'd ask it, how would you... a piece of encouragement or advice you'd love to give to the audience, but obviously as a new dad as well, you're now you're always a role model, but a role model for someone you've co-created.
Yeah.
Through the example of your actions, what do you hope to instill in your young boy?
Probably the biggest thing is obviously hard work and sort of dedication. I'd love to instill that into my son. So no matter what it is you want in life, if you work hard, you'll get it.
Yep.
But also only worry about the things you can control, because there'll be thousands of things that are going to happen throughout your life that you can't control. But the way you sort of attack and go after the things you can control will determine the overall sort of where you end up. So that's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And where can people find you and follow you on socials?
You can just find me on Instagram at @RogyD_. And even if you want to follow the journey, that's where I'll be posting a bit of stuff. Yeah,
awesome. Mate, I truly appreciate you giving up time on Saturday, especially with family and obviously in the middle of training towards the games as well. It's been awesome to pick your brain and hear about the experience that you've gone on. But, mate, your mindset is the resilience that you have, the way that you can just pivot and what seems so seamlessly. I'm sure, as we've sort of touched on, there are the tough times, but you tend to focus more on what's available to you by telling people when they come to the hospital, don't come in unless you're bringing in a good attitude. That, for me, highlights some very important things that a lot of people can take away and start implementing in their own life to, have a great outlook and achieve some amazing things. So thank you very much for coming on.
No, thanks for having me.
Cheers, brother. Yes. Guys, we've just jumped back on because once we hung up the headset, I was like, Rogan, where do you reckon all your resilience was instilled from? And then you just delivered this incredibly insightful piece about obviously family and everything like that. But I guess we'll hit that question again. Where do you feel that resilience came from and was developed?
Like I touched on it, it's definitely, I think it was instilled in me from a very young age from my parents. I probably didn't realise it until I was a bit older. But even just going back to we're growing up in New Zealand, and the area itself wasn't the best environment to be raising kids in. There was a lot sort of better opportunities for us as a family and for us children, for mum and dad to move us to Australia. And they, right from them, sort of with not much money and nothing, not really much to our names, they packed up the whole family, moved to Australia with no house or anything lined up. We had a family of 6 living in a caravan park until mum and dad sort of found their feet, started working, sort of through hard work, got a house, moved us into a house, and all of that was just to give our family and us children the sort of the best opportunity that they possibly can. And My parents have always been extremely hard workers, and they've always instilled that into us children. And one thing Mum and Dad always, like, they were always very persistent with me is you have to be, like, they said you got to get into sports. You need stuff that's challenging you, stuff to sort of work towards. And then they always said, like, if you start something, you have to finish it. So no matter how hard it is, like, you can't go into something half-assed and quit midway through. So if you start it, you finish it. And that's always stuck with me. And they've sort of been like a good example of, like, no matter what sort of situation you're in, you can always better it through hard work. And having that sort of you're not allowed to quit attitude has definitely transferred into other aspects of my life, where I always go into everything giving it 110% until I'm finished. Like, I have to see everything through.
A lot of people could definitely take that lesson. I've read in so many articles and so many podcasts and this is once again from people who are running successful podcasts or running blogs, where they're like, the ability for people to succeed now, if you have a degree of resilience and perseverance, because most people quit too soon. They might hit a roadblock or have that initial moment where they walk into some adversity and they just quit, or something else takes their focus. They might go, 1 week I'm playing footy, next week I'm playing soccer, and they never allow themselves to build momentum to develop the skills to be successful.
Yeah.
And that's obviously what's continuing to allow you to thrive in the way that you did. I had one other question, obviously, from football or rugby league and CrossFit, completely different skill sets. How the hell did you learn, like, gymnastics and all of that sort of stuff so quickly?
Definitely a lot of fails along the way, but I've always had a very good foundation of sort of strength and fitness and that through rugby league, and I've always done a lot of extra training outside of rugby league in sort of strength and fitness. So coming to CrossFit, I had a good foundation to start with. So I already had the strength and endurance. So a lot of it was just technique work, and that came through just being persistent and just I'd pick one skill, like especially like the gymnastics. I'd just pick one skill, and like even like right from the very start, it was like, how do I do a kipping pull up, and how do I do a kipping chest to bar, and like I could do muscle ups and stuff, but they were like strict muscle ups, and I'd do 10 and I'd be dead. When it's like you need to be able to do 40, 50 of them in a CrossFit workout. So I just started by picking one skill, and after every single training session, I'd just spend 10 minutes just drilling that one drill until I could complete that movement, and then I'm like, all right, now I've got that, I'll pick the next one, and that's still even happening now. Like now, I'm able to do every movement now, and now I'm back at the start and picking one skill again and going, how can I be more efficient in that movement? So yes, I can do it, but how can I make it more efficient, and how can I so I just keep trying to better every little movement along the way. Yeah,
so the job's never done. You're legitimately like that LSKD video, you're always looking for those 1%ers.
Well, that's the best thing about CrossFit is there's so many different disciplines in the one sport where you've constantly got stuff you're working on.
Yeah.
And then they'll throw a new movement in that no one's seen, and then you got to try and learn that. No, like it's just continuously, like I said, there's always room for improvement in the sport, which is probably the best thing about it.
Yep. All these questions are now popping into my head. So when you had the injury, former NRL player, I can't remember his name, from New Zealand International, won a premiership with Melbourne. Also,
Tatawira Nico.
Yeah. What was it like having him reach out to you to sort of be able to share the journey he's been on, having a similar accident or similar?
It definitely helped. Like it was awesome to hear from someone like him who's sort of had been at an elite level and then been through a similar accident, and just to hear that they're still getting on with life, and and there was a few other people I'd sort of touch base with that had been through similar accidents and had prosthetic legs and stuff, and speaking to people like that early on definitely helped, because there was like in the early days there was like so many questions running through my head that I wanted to ask, and like you can ask the doctors and surgeons and like they can sort of give you their answers, but without like talking to someone who's actually physically been through it, that's sort of where I feel I got the best sort of information and best answers from.
What were some of the pressing questions that you had around that obviously, for example, I wouldn't even think about at the moment?
Probably in the very early days of when I like first started getting a prosthetic leg fitted, there's like it's a while for your leg to kind of condition to it and sort of like get used to like bearing that weight through it, and then going through the process of getting different legs made and different quality ones. But in the early days, like I'd put a leg on and then I'd try and do as much as I can. So I'd be out, I'd like quickly go to the gym, and then I'm out running around trying to do stuff, and then within a couple of hours, like my leg would be killing me, and and it was disheartening at times because and then I'm asking like other guys, like, is this how it is forever? Like, is this always just going to be a pain in the ass where it is sore? Like after a couple of hours, I've got to take it off because it is like killing me. Yep. And that was probably the biggest questions I had, and that just that got better over time. Where like now, like there's days I'll forget I've even got it, and like I'll put it on in the morning when I get out of bed, and then I'll go to work all day, I'll train all day, and like I take it off to clean it and that. But like in terms of actually taking it off, I don't take it off until I'm hopping into bed the next night. Like I can wear it all day with no issues at all.
That's wild.
But in the early days, it was definitely like I said, those pressing questions where I'm asking people, does it get better? Like surely it's got to be better than this.
Yeah, that's obviously something a doctor can't for certain say. Have you run the marathon? Have you run a marathon since?
Not yet, but that's, like I said, when I'm done with competitive CrossFit, that's definitely going to be my next goal, because it sort of at the moment running that sort of amount of kilometres doesn't really fit into my training. It's a different sort of discipline that I'd have to work on, but that's definitely on my goals to go back and run a marathon again.
Yeah, epic. All right, we're done for good this time. I promise, guys. Thanks for jumping back on and having that second segment. Appreciate it, mate.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Man That Can Project podcast. My name is Lachlan Stuart, and I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. If you did, please take a moment to rate and review the Man That Can Project on your favourite podcast platform. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our newest episodes. We'll see you again next time. Thank you for listening to the Man That Can Project podcast. My name is Lachlan Stuart, and I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. If you did, please take a moment to rate and review the Man That Can Project on your favourite podcast platform. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our newest episodes. We'll see you again next time.